Hello everyone, my name is Jordan Wilborn and today I'm representing Group 1 talking about the pros of horse slaughter. I would like to start by talking about a little bit of history and just introducing the topic, and we can kind of see where it comes from and how it changes throughout time. Horses were originated in North America. They were domesticated around 4500 BC. During this time, they were valued for flesh and as well as companion animals, but they were also seen to revolutionize agriculture. They helped to develop cities and they improved transportation and communication, and they also revolutionized warfare. Some of the oldest discovered cave paintings show the ritual hunting of horses. Horses were originally consumed out of desperation. This is during times of warfare and depressions and recessions. Horses were hunted, slaughtered, and dined on for their rich meat. Horse meat consumption made its way to America in the 1860s, and this was around the time of the Civil War. The horse meat fad began to fade in the US after the war was over, when originally more popular consumed meats like beef and pork and that such, they became more affordable again. And then horse meat consumption, it remained a controversial topic and people began pushing for legislation to ban it. We see legislation start to take place in California, and this was with Proposition 6. It was enacted in 1998, and it made it a felony to possess, transfer, receive, or hold a horse with the intent to kill it or have it killed, where the person knows or should have known that any part of the carcass will be used for human consumption. And then throughout the years, we see legislation continue to push a little bit more. In 2007, we see different states moving to outlaw the slaughter of horses for consumption. And then we also see a provision enacted that prevented the use of federal funds to conduct mandatory inspections on slaughterhouses. So without these proper inspections, all but 3 major horse slaughterhouses were permanently shut down in the United States. But because of this, the only thing that really changed was the exporters just shipped the live horses abroad, and so to Mexico and Canada, where they would be ground up and sent to Europe for consumption. Okay, so next I have some facts about horses. The average horse lives between 25 and 30 years, and it weighs between 900 to 1,600 pounds. Horses are measured in a unit called hands. 1 hand is equal to 4 inches. Horses have around 205 bones in their skeleton. There are 350 plus breeds of horses recognized around the world at this moment. And this is something that is constantly growing just because of different crossbreedings and stuff like that. Just different breeds are being discovered. These breeds can be broken down into 4 major groups. We have the light horses. These horses generally weigh less than 1,300 pounds, and they're characterized by thinner legs and smaller bones. 2 popular breeds for this group would be Arabians and Morgans. The next group we have are the heavy horses. These are what are sometimes referred to as the draft horses. These ones can weigh up to 3,000 pounds, and they're characterized by muscular legs, large bones, and they often have a mild temperament. 2 popular breeds for this group would be known as the Clydesdales and the Belgians. The next group we have are ponies. These are the shorter of the breeds. They're usually less than 14.2 hands, which equals out to 56.8 inches or 4.7 feet. 2 popular breeds for this group are the Shetlands and the Haflingers. And then the last major group of horses we know of are the feral horses, and these are the ones that are known as the wild, undomesticated horses. The primary breed in the U.S. is what is known as the Mustang. So next I have some facts about horse consumption. Throughout history, 2 main ways we've seen horses be consumed is through their meat and then as well as their milk. So as I mentioned earlier, this was often done in times of despair because there was wars going on, so resources were extremely limited, or this was during recessions, stuff like that. So people didn't really have money to afford to feed their families, so they kind of had to use their hunting gathering skills and just use what they already had available. Oftentimes, it was horses, so they could milk them and drink their milk for nutrition, and then they could also eat their meat as a good source of protein. Horse meat it tends to be healthier than beef. It is lower in fat, cholesterol, and sodium. It's higher in protein and iron, and it's also rich in vitamins and omega-3 fatty acids. Horse meat does tend to be slightly sweet, and it is as well as a tender meat. Unfortunately, there does reach a point where sometimes horses do have to be put down. This can be for a variety of reasons, whether it is a horse gets injured, they are sick, there's just an overpopulation of horses. Horses are expensive, so sometimes people just can't afford them, and this is where we will see them either be let loose, we will see them not being properly taken care of, they get malnourished, they get put into a shelter. Shelters can get overcrowded. There's many options where this can lead to. So 3 main ways that a horse can be put down are the following. The first most common way that a horse can be put down is through euthanization. To euthanize a horse, the definition is to put to death by euthanasia, generally in order to avoid pain. Euthanization can take place in a couple different methods. One of the most popular methods is the lethal injection. This is where the vet does inject the horse with a sedative and then followed by a central nervous depressant, and this just kind of shuts the horse's body down. The next method that we see used is a gun. Some people do believe this method to be the most humane because it is instantaneous. If you pretty much make an X from the left ear to the right eye and then the right ear to the left eye, and you aim for the middle, the bullet immediately enters the skull, and like I said, it is an instantaneous kill. The next method is the captive bolt. This is a device used which is similar to a gun. And then finally there is the bleeding out method. This one does tend to be more gruesome than the rest just because there's a lot of blood involved, but it is where an incision is made with a sharp knife in the jugular, and it's directed backwards towards the entrance of the chest, and it pretty much just severs all major blood vessels arising from the heart. The next way we can see a horse be put down is through cremation. So this is to incinerate or to burn up to ashes. Sometimes people do choose to cremate their animals. We typically see this with people whose horses were their pets or their show animals. They do choose to cremate them and spread their ashes or bury their ashes on their land. Something just to kind of commemorate the memory of their animal. And then last but not least, we do see slaughter as another main method to putting a horse down. By definition, slaughter means to kill, especially for food, or to kill in large numbers. Slaughtering does tend to be the most controversial method because there are a lot of different ethical and cultural and sociological reasons we can see behind it. It is highly controversial, but throughout my research, I tend to see that it does kind of land in the middle where people are, it seems like half the population is for it and half of it is against it, and we will kind of get into those reasons next. So next we do see some pros and cons of horse slaughter. Pros can be listed as they provide income and job opportunities. This can just be through the entire process of slaughtering the horse, from the person transporting the horse to the slaughterhouse, the people working at the slaughterhouse, the ones that actually physically perform the slaughter, and then as well as the butchers, stuff like that, that process the carcass and the meat and all that type of stuff. It also increases production of more meat for consumption. So a main reason for agriculture is to feed the nation. So obviously, with our rapidly growing population, we have to have an increased food source to feed all of these people. So the horse meat, it does provide more meat just for the population to consume. It can also control the population of horses. This can be from the wild horses, like I talked about earlier, the undomesticated ones, the feral horses, or it can also be unwanted horses, old horses, injured horses. It just really controls the population for the species. And then also animal welfare. So if there are injured animals, typically instead of letting them suffer, you can go ahead and just slaughter the horse, kind of end their suffering. If, for example, they have a broken leg, something like that, where they are an animal that is on their feet constantly, so it's not an injury that they will necessarily be able to recover from. There are some cons of horse slaughter. Some of the most common ones we can see it poses a severe health risk. So as I talked about earlier with the legislation and stuff like that, so unfortunately mandatory inspections were cut with regulations. So if the slaughterhouses aren't taking the necessary precautions they need, then this can serve as a health risk. But there are also things like the USDA, stuff like that, where they do have to go through a set of steps to get their meat inspected and make sure that it is safe for consumers. It can also raise moral and societal questions. This is all kind of just people's personal opinions. Some also see it as inhumane, and then it also can kind of walk the line of where it is violating certain laws and legislations. So next, I do want to talk about the ethical aspect of horse slaughter. So as I mentioned earlier, you can see how it is kind of in the middle. On this poll here, the question is it wrong to eat horse meat? And 45% said yes, and 55% said no. So as you can see, it is a pretty close race here. This website here, debate.org, you can post debate questions and people give their feedback. And so ethical reasons, it is a lot of personal feelings. And so a lot of the people who are saying that it is wrong, typically they're talking about horses are more of like a friend or a companion animal, so they think it's wrong, like you wouldn't slaughter and eat your dog or your cat. And then the people that say no, they typically talk about horses being livestock, so you slaughter cows and you slaughter pigs and eat their meat, so they don't see the difference between slaughtering a horse and slaughtering other types of livestock for this. So the next topic I have is cultural and sociological importance. Some cultural aspects we can see, there's different religions, they have different viewpoints of this. So Christian missionaries are claimed to have introduced horse meat to Tongan immigrants. In Islamic law, consuming horse meat is halal, which means it is okay. And then the Jewish dietary law forbids the horse meat. So some sociological aspects. Horse meat, it is considered a taboo in America, but it is considered an expensive delicacy in Japan and European countries. So, like I said, you can see this continues to be a very controversial topic. There are currently some current events with this going on in the world. There are still animal welfare groups that are pushing for further legislation. They want to completely make it illegal for you to consume horse meat. So this is some recent articles that you have seen in the news recently. The earliest back was in March of 2018, talking about a last-minute renewal and spending, a spending law that Trump had signed. So in conclusion, based off of various arguments and research I found, I believe horse slaughtering should be deemed as an acceptable opinion for putting down a horse. Like I did mention earlier, horses are livestock animals, so they should be allowed to be slaughtered just like cows and pigs. Horses are a luxury good, so they cost anywhere between $1,800 to $2,400 annually to maintain. This is not something that people can commonly afford, or sometimes they just can't afford it anymore. So, there's just different reasons we get an overpopulation. Approximately 1.5% of the horse population is slaughtered each year. So if they're already being slaughtered, I feel like you might as well just put them to use and their meat is in demand. So, yeah.